Duda puts your brand front and center. With Duda's extensive white label capabilities, you can make the entire editor your own. Use your own logo, your own domain, your own email address, add even your own color palette. With Duda, your clients are your own.
Okay, we are live. Hey, Yannick, how are you?
Hello, very good. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. I was going to say good afternoon because hopefully most of our audience is going to be tuning in from Europe. It's good morning for me because I'm in Denver, Colorado today. I insisted about this webinar being in the EMEA time zone, and I ended up being the one in the US. So, but yeah, so we are live, and I always want to leave a bit of time so that people can join in, and I think YouTube kind of like refreshes and so on. But you know, we are live with how websites fueled Smobu's SaaS expansion and unlocked new revenue streams. It's a webinar that I'm super excited to do with you, Yannick. I'll get into introducing you in a second. But as people drop in, maybe I'll introduce myself, your host, because we don't need to know too much about me. But you know, I've been here at Duda for 4.5 years, nearly 5 years actually. So been one of the veterans now. And over the years, I've partnered with a lot of different SaaS companies. I have helped them with their integrations, with everything that, you know, especially vertical SaaS companies around how they go to market in also embedding websites and so on, especially in Europe. So we really kind of wanted to organize this just to give a little bit of a chance for product leaders of SaaS vertical companies around Europe to understand and get a better understanding, get a better idea of how Yannick and everyone over at Smobu have done this, because it is becoming a very big part of the go-to-market of vertical SaaS. So that's who I am. And but anyways, before we jump in, also let's get a sense of who's with us. So drop in the chat where you're tuning in from today. And you know, Yannick, you're calling in from?
I'm from beautiful Berlin, Germany.
Berlin, yep. We came over a couple of times. That was like again, it's one of those cities that are a bit of like I either love it or I hate it, depending on the weather. It's very London-like.
Yeah, unfortunately we're not having a good time right now, but
it's okay. But that's okay. It's November, so I don't expect it to be.
It's May soon, so who's complaining?
There you go. So yeah, let us know where you're calling in from. Grab your coffee or whatever you might drink. No one's judging. It's 5 p.m. somewhere. But anyway, so today I am joined by someone who's not only building one of the most recognized SaaS companies, SaaS platforms in the vacation rental space, but also someone that can probably outrun a lot of us because he runs a lot. He recently ran Berlin Marathon. He recently ran Nice Half Marathon. So Yannick, CEO of Smobu, passionate runner, a Berlin local who took us to a really good sushi spot last time, actually, near the office. But it's great to have you here. Yeah, maybe you want to give a little intro yourself.
Yes, thanks a lot for having me, Felix. I'm quite excited to be here. I think when you first brought up the idea of doing a chat webinar, it didn't take me long to say, yes, absolutely, happy to do it. I think during the next couple of minutes or in the next hour, we'll hear quite a bit about the partnerships anyways, quite a bit about Smoobu. So I'm very grateful for the intro, very happy to be here and happy to discuss and hopefully put a bit of or a couple of extra thoughts in everybody who's joining and help fellow SaaS leaders or anyone out in how they can actually make their business better. Or what I actually like the most is helping your customers in the end a bit better, which is the beauty of what we're doing in the end.
Yep. And let us know if anyone's actually tuning in from a vacation rental right now. Maybe you're working from one of Yannick's locations. But we do have a lot of locations in the chat. So Kyiv, Ukraine, Slovakia, Denmark, India. So yeah, welcome all. I think we always go quite global on these webinars, which is good. But from Brazil, rent my house, actually, yeah. Love it.
Nice.
And one of the questions that I actually had, I actually thought this whilst I went on my run yesterday. Do you come up with any product ideas or any GTM ideas when you're mid-run?
I mean, it's a good time to think about stuff, but I got to be honest, I usually listen to a lot of audiobooks. I'm a big fantasy nerd, so I usually use the time while working out to listen to some very extravagant fantasy audiobooks. So that's usually the time, or one of the times where I actually don't think about work. Sometimes stuff comes up, or as everybody knows it, in the shower while running, you think about stuff that you're potentially going to do, but it's actually more of a decluttering time than the active thought of it.
Yeah, no, I share the same kind of thing, but I do come up with a lot of ideas. Sometimes I even have to just like jot them down. Yes, in the chat. So you can expect responses for sure. We will be taking questions during the webinar throughout the whole thing. So please ask any questions. I think, again, one of the biggest things that I want to make sure that this is more of like a conversation with people in the chat, with Yannick and so on. So please feel free to ask anything that you want to know. But let's get started, Yannick. Let's go. Let's maybe shed some light around the journey that took you to here and you know why we're here today.
Good, perfect. I think the one thing to mention also for the audience is if you have any questions that are related to the content that we're sharing that minute, just drop them in. We'll try to also make it a bit more interactive. It's not just me going to be presenting. We try to have a conversation in the end where we're more here for you than we are for me and Felix, maybe Felix a little bit, but I'm just here because I enjoy it. So anything you'd like we should elaborate on, happy to do so. Other than that, I think a couple of things to mention to put into perspective what we do at Smoobu. And as Felix mentioned it, we do offer software for vacation rental owners. And the vacation rental market is quite a big market that is constantly growing. And I've yesterday again attended an event from booking.com, so we can expect also tremendous growth rates throughout the next couple of years. Travel is still the #1 item that consumer spending is not going to be cut on. So sentiments throughout every continent, every country in the world you can think of, usually travel is the one thing where consumers do not want to cut back on spending. So it's actually quite a resilient industry. And out of this, vacation rental is even a bit more resilient. We've seen that throughout COVID. We've seen that throughout the last couple of years. It's an international industry, but it's also still growing, still fragmented, but still big. And I don't want to say ripe for the taking, but there is also still a massive lack of digitization in it. So we're talking about basically a $2 billion market globally that's growing within the low teen percentages usually every year still. And 2/3 of this are coming from the European market and the North American market, whereas the European market is still the very traditional epicenter of the vacation rental industry. But obviously the US is just a huge market by itself. So that's a lovely animation, by the way. Yes, that's I think that's way too low actually, because it's 200 billion, not 2 billion. You need to add a couple of zeros there. So maybe it doesn't fit. So in generally, that does sound like a huge heyday for the Airbnbs, the Booking.coms, the VRBOs of the world, right? So, but what is super interesting and what is still to mention, thank you very much, is that out of those 200 billion in revenue and market size that are still in there, and we have those huge platforms, and everyone knows Airbnb, which is pretty much a synonym now for the vacation rental. But 1/3 of all of those bookings that's making up that revenue is still coming direct to the hosts. So there is a huge market still for the hosts to get the direct bookings themselves via their website, via their telephone, however you want to do it. So yes, you always think about the big portals, but still one of the biggest chunks of it is still going directly to the host. And this is a bit where our journey today starts. So
yeah, I actually, on that point, Yannick, I mean, when I last stayed with a host, they actually mentioned to me like, oh, next time, feel free to book direct and so on. It's like a big topic where I feel like a lot of hosts, it's not just about the money, the revenue. It's more about have that feeling that this is your own way of kind of like doing business with someone. So I completely see that still being a case in 2025, 2026.
Yeah, and especially as you mentioned it, right? It's not only about the money. Yes, you do pay 15, 18%, depending on the country, in commission to the platforms, but they also do the marketing for you. So that's fine. But the one thing I loved the last couple of times I spoke to hosts, that they actually said, yes, but if I know my guests, I can make a much better guest experience happening. Because if I know that Felix is going to come and he wants to run and he does that every year and he comes here to do whatever, I can put him some electrolytes there. Like it's the small things, but if you know your guests, it's a whole different ball game. And that is because we work a lot with smaller private hosts. The super personal guest experience is something that they also enjoy, and that in the end every guest enjoys. So that is I think the beauty of it in the end.
Yeah, and just before you get started, we do have a question. Do you have any statistics about the Indian market? Because I know you mentioned Europe, but like, what about Middle East, India? Have you heard it much around?
So not on top of my head. So in terms of numbers, what I can tell you is about the potential, because we got some numbers yesterday at the event from Booking.com I mentioned. India is the fastest growing market. India, Pakistan, and the surrounding countries, and especially the Middle East, will move into the top 10 of the countries that people travel from during the next 5 to 10 years. So that is definitely a thing. And India will surpass, I think, Germany in terms of travel spend. And I think, don't name me now on those numbers, but there is a potential of, I think it was 2.6 billion euros in spend or something like that from the Indian market, as compared to Germany, which is usually the fourth or third biggest travel market in the world, which is 1.8 at the moment. So India is growing drastically, and also one of the key markets for example, a Booking.com or an Airbnb to also heavily invest. So there is a market there.
Oh, okay. And then one last question before we get into the actual presentation. From Hans, Airbnb is under huge pressure in countries like Spain, no new licenses and etc. Will someone who uses your service escape it?
No. So the regulatory things do apply to all short-term rental hosts. There is no exceptions whether you're a Smoobu user or whether you list. So our users also do list usually on Airbnb, Booking.com, and their own direct websites. But there is still the need to comply to all the regulation that is out there for you as a host.
Okay, amazing. All right, let's go. There you
go. There we go.
We now have statistics. Thanks, Anton.
Good. Now, Felix already introduced myself. I'm Yannick. I'm Managing Director and CEO at Smoobu. So what the heck? I don't think I'm allowed to swear. So what are we actually doing at Smoobu? To give you a little bit of a taste. So in the vacation rental industry, there's usually the split between what we would call a private host and a professional host. And professionals are usually property management companies. So huge companies where you can go, give them the keys to your property, and you just get a margin back, and anything else is taken care of. On the other hand, you have the option to host yourself as a private host, use a software like ours, use the portals, have a little bit more work, but in the end also your margin potential is quite a bit higher than you would have if you just hand it off, as it is with every outsourcing service. So what you can imagine Smoobu as is basically we are targeted at those independent hosts and smaller property managers. You can imagine it as the operating system for your vacation rental. You sync availabilities, you sync prices, and so on. I will come to that later in a bit. And what we try to focus on, and that will become important throughout the presentation, is our USP is do it simply, do it efficient, and focus on the growth for those hosts. So everything needs to be tailored to just work on its own, to be very simple, to be very lean, to not overload the hosts or our users with any features here, features there. Those small and private hosts, they usually do their business on the side. It's not their main job. They want to expand, yes, and we have people who also grow to 150 properties, but they still need simplicity. So that is at the core of what everything we do. And we do that by now for a couple of 10,000 people worldwide. I think my favorite fun fact is that we do serve hosts in around 120 countries, which means that usually every country on earth that is not under any embargo right now is there is at least one Smoobu host that is managing their properties with us, which I do like, to be honest.
That's a very cool. That's a very cool thing to say. You're fully international.
Yeah, it's the core market for us is, of course, still Europe. As we're based in Berlin, we come from Germany. We have a very strong reputation in the DACH market, but it is a very international product, and you can use it anywhere you want to.
Is there a big difference between a host in DACH region and a host in Latam in Brazil?
Yeah, so obviously there is a bit of higher price sensitivity in countries that have a lower purchasing power. So that you see in general. You do also, I think the most striking differences in terms of market for, and especially Germany versus the rest of the world, is the share between privately managed and professionally managed. So on average, globally, you have a 50-50 split, professional versus private. In Germany, you have 85% of the vacation rentals are managed privately by hosts. So I don't know why. Apparently, we Germans like to do it ourselves. It might be a control freak thingy, so might be driven by that. But generally, and at the essence of it, the hosting business is the same globally. There are obviously regulation differences, a couple of things that you need to take care of. But in essence, it's about creating a good guest experience, maximizing your revenue, and lowering either your costs or actually your workload as a host. That's the basic essence of it. As we can see with the number of countries we have connected, you can do it everywhere. And the essence of it, provide a great guest experience, and you're going to be very well off.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, to give you a little bit of insights about what do I mean when I actually say, hey, operating system for your vacation rental. Anyone who hasn't run a vacation rental or never booked a stay, obviously that's a bit hard to imagine. So we do have 4 major product areas, or 4 major pain points that we solve for users. On the one hand side, we do sync or synchronize calendars and organize bookings. As you can see here a bit, you have all your bookings from the different platforms in one place. So you don't have to go to Airbnb, to booking.com, compare. Yeah.
Nick, I actually think we don't see the slide.
Oh, sorry.
There we go.
There we go. I was actually looking at my speaker notes, so I put the wrong slide there. So as I mentioned, you can see which is what we call here the calendar view. You do see all your bookings in one place from the different platforms. So you stay on top of your bookings. You can organize your staff, your cleaning staff, your maintenance staff, or anything. Is someone in the flat? Does it need cleaning? Does it need maintenance? And so on and so forth. Then the second part of it, as mentioned before, is you do want to have all your communications in one place. So all the messages from your booking.com customers, from your Airbnb customers, from your direct bookings, from your VRBO bookings. You don't want to go into each and every platform every time to check messages, but you just want it centralized, right? Save time, create the same templates, automate what you can automate. So you do have all of this in one place, and you also do have the same level of quality and the same level of standard across the board. Now, the two missing areas of it is synchronize your pricing across different platforms, because what you obviously want to optimize on if you run a vacation rental, which is in essence a business and usually not a hobby. So you do want to do, let's say, basic revenue management. You want all your pricings synchronized across the platforms. You want to define your minimum lengths of stays. You want to define cancellation policies across the platform. You also want to adjust prices across the different seasons, across different lengths, and so on. So play around with it a bit. Anyone who's ever booked a vacation rental or even hotels or flights will know there are different prices in different seasons. You will get a very cheap vacation rental in, I don't know, south of Europe in the very much of winter, or Germany actually, Baltic Sea. It's very cheap in November, I can tell you. It's also not very nice in November. I can also tell you that. So
yeah, they put offers on the table so that you can take that. No, absolutely.
And the last piece of the puzzle, and why we're all here, is in the end, you want to get direct bookings via your own website to stay in control of your guests, to deliver better guest experience, and in the end, optimize your margins. Because you want to build your brand and get those repeat customers. So not only do you want to avoid those OTA fees, but building that brand, getting that guest experience, getting those repeat customers is in the end what makes your life so much easier. If you already know that Felix is coming every year at the same time, for the same period of time, you already know there's certain revenue in it, and you're all running a business, so you do know that certain revenue that you can plan with, that is best case already booked and paid, so you also have a working capital aspect in it, is a very nice thing, and every CFO will tell you this is what I want. Cash flow up front, certain revenue already in the future, best case 12 months ahead.
Yeah.
Love it. So looking at all of those things,
we're still on the I think we're still on the calendar slide. Just want to make sure.
Yeah.
There you go.
No, I think that was.
Oh, that was okay.
It doesn't move. That's sorry. For anyone who doesn't, the animation is not moving, but that doesn't matter. So that still shows the calendar and the pricing. But the one thing where it gets tricky is you want to stay in control of your own destiny. You want to have your own direct booking website. But what we offered was not good. So we still had a legacy solution, as you can see here. The direct booking website builder that we offered, we kept improving the core product. We kept redesigning the product from the bottom up. When I took over 3.5 years ago, we had a lot of legacy tech to deal with. We had a great product market fit, but a lot of tech legacy to deal with. So the one thing that always fell off the wagon was making that website builder better. We had a website builder that was technically not maintainable. Mm-hmm. For us. It was horrific. To be quite frank, if that thing would have failed at one point, there wouldn't have been a way to fix it. We have several 10,000 websites online in that thing. So it's not a nice thing for me. Yeah. That can keep me up at night. But in the end, we never had the time to do that versus other priorities that also took the precedence. So
it's not your core product, right? It's this is a conversation that I have very often. Your core products are the ones that you described earlier: the dynamic pricing, the booking, all of those things that the hosts are taking from you. That all this one solution that you're essentially creating, the simplicity. But what made you realize that having a strong website component was the next project you wanted to bring to life? Like, because that value that you build for the host. What was the moment that you realized, okay, is it what you mentioned around you had to get all of the other core products up to like really nearly perfection, and then you focus on the website? Or what was that okay, I need to do this moment?
Yeah, so we always had it on the roadmap to do it at one point, because the challenge with it was that you can't do it half-assed, right? Because it's always the MVP of launching it or newly building it is rather big for us. It's not something where I can say, hey, I built an MVP in 3 sprints and then iterate from there. No, you needed to have a running website builder, because otherwise there's no way of launching it. So in the end, as it's always, it's a bit of luck. So it takes a bit of luck, it takes a bit of good timing, and the good timing in the end came a bit of a fortunate event that we had the ability to actually buy the assets of a company that was already working with Duda. So we've been approached, we've been in talks with them of actually either of buying them earlier, and then actually at one point say, okay, they already have the technical infrastructure in place for us to have a good point where we can take those assets and actually set up the website builder so that it's not this big chunk MVP that we have to work half a year on to actually release something. But that in the end, while I was having those talks of checking, hey, is it actually worth for us buying those assets and getting going with Duda? That in the end was an easy call, because I could say, hey, with it's unfortunately not like that, and included a bit of money to actually get it over the table. But in the end, it was an easy decision, because I could say, okay, with this, I'm at a very good point to start and can actually make something happen that can very easily impact a lot of our customers, a lot of our hosts, with a big impact. So I did have the luck of actually being able to say, okay, I can now scale that MVP down in terms of time, and I can actually deliver something quite quickly that delivers a lot of value for hosts. So that was the unfortunate event that we had there. And especially looking back, it was a very good thing to happen. I mean, it always takes a bit of luck in business and life. So
I think this is like something that many SaaS companies, and again, anyone in the chat, whether you're a product leader, whether you're a C-level at a SaaS company or whatever, feel free to drop in on this. But I feel like many SaaS companies struggle with deciding whether to build or partner for something like websites, right? What advice would you give to other SaaS founders, executives, or product leaders who are thinking about this, doing a similar thing where websites in-house may be too tough to maintain, the gap in innovation is widening because of everything that's happening around? Like, what's your advice?
As always, it's a bit of, it depends, but the depends is not there are so many differences for it. I think at one point you just need to have the decision framework for you as a leader or for you as a company to make sure, is it something that I want to buy, that I want to build, and that I can actually also maintain? And we've had the same fallacy, right? You build something and then you totally forget about the hypercare you need to do afterwards, the constant maintenance, because the more stuff you build yourself, the bigger your team for maintenance will get. And in the end, the decision you always think about is, I build it and then I set and forget. Unfortunately, at least not from my experience, this is not how it works. And I can't keep building stuff that is not at the essence or at the core of my business that I have to maintain very, very heavily. So there is this aspect. And there is also, to be very frank, the aspect of, can you even build it with the same quality as a partner can? So also the decision that you need to make, it's not, yes, it might be cheaper in the first place to build it to a certain quality, but is that actually the quality that you want to achieve? Or is that the quality that you would want to aim for? Because yes, you might be able to build this quality, but the 50% or 30% in extra value that you could achieve with a partner, will that bring you an extra lift in revenue, in retention? in any go-to-market points, in any marketing you can do about it? Potentially. So if that spread is also quite a bit bigger, go with a partner. And I think, especially at Smoobu, we have loads of integration partners. We have a big marketplace. We have white label solutions that we use. For example, the Duda solution. We have general third-party integrations, and the approach that we do have is it works. You rather get more features in, and especially with a software as a service product, lock your clients into your ecosystem with those integrations, rather than building everything on your own and then building it half-assed and then here a bit and there a bit. Focus on what you're good at and then connect the pieces so you can actually create that value.
Mm-hmm. And we have a couple of interesting questions. So the first one is, I was actually going to ask this as well. Did AI have any involvement in your decision making?
Honestly, at this point, no. So when we first started having the conversation, I think that was beginning or mid of last year. Quite frankly, no. We haven't been at the point with the whole LLM wave where they were ready or you had the same effects or the same outcomes they had this year. But also in general, I mean, we're going to touch upon a couple of AI features that are going to be built and so on and so forth later on. But generally, the website builder function or the decision to actually use a partner for this, completely independent of AI. It's something that our users need. And we do use all the AI stuff with our own developers, yada, yada, yada. But in the end, again, it comes back to expertise, right? I'm sure, I'm quite certain, and I know that Felix's developer team is quite a bit more versed in building the website builder functions than our own team is. At least I hope so. But so it's also one of the points, right? So no, it was not this or AI or something else.
Yeah, I think the timing of it was also kind of like, this was over a year and a little bit ago. So it was like the AI wave that we're seeing today maybe wasn't as prominent. I think this AIO, whatever you're hearing around the market, it is very important for hosts. And I think maybe in the next slides, we'll see kind of like why you're maybe glad that you did choose something like that Duda that does this. But I think right now it's accelerating a lot of different SaaS companies in the way that they are thinking about this. This is no longer a nice to have, a commodity. This is now more of like a necessity, because otherwise your hosts are not going to be found or any other customer. Online presence is becoming so much more important, right? And then we do have another question, and I'm very surprised it took us 31 minutes to have a question around, or to mention AI. We didn't mention AI until 31 minutes into a webinar, which I think is a record. We have another question from Gabriela. Are the hosts tech savvy? Was it hard for them to use the website builder when they upgraded?
I think it's a very good point, and luckily I'm going to run through the rest of the presentation because that touches exactly up on that. Because Gabriela, you have a very good point. We do have hosts that are very tech savvy, but we also do have hosts who are absolutely not. So as mentioned before, the core of where Smobu is coming from is offering that simplicity, because we have two ICPs basically. One is the classic tech savvy entrepreneurial, I want to call it Airbnb arbitrage person. So that starts off and just wants to scale their business, that are very outcome focused, that are very keen on trying things out. But we also have the person that owns their vacation rentals, for example, at the German Baltic Sea, that is fine with having 2-3 vacation rental units, want to manage it on the side, and is not tech savvy at all. So for them, we really needed to build something that they can launch with a click of a button. So you shouldn't, we weren't be able to build something that overloads the hosts. That is the whole essence of our platform, is building stuff that is as simple as possible, easy to use, to especially not overwhelm our users with it because they need simple solutions. They don't need the most fancy websites out there. They, in the end, they just need something that works, because that's in the end what they want and what they aim for. So remember what I told you at the beginning, right? So in line with our value proposition as Smobu, and it should feel natural, we wanted something that is simple, that is performant, so that gets you those direct bookings, and that is scalable for us as a tech solution. So we needed basically a one-click solution, and the way we did it together with Duda, we designed basically as now the first iteration of the product. It's one simple template. You have the editor, you can actually go have all your data about your properties in Smoobu. You click one button, you go to the editor, and you basically have a ready-to-go website. You have a couple of placeholders that you can take out, that you can take in. You can do all the stuff you want to if you want to, but if you don't, 3 minutes, you have your own website. If you already have your stuff within Smoobu and don't want to edit anything, you can have it in 30 seconds. And that, I think, is the essence that in the end also made the adoption for us quite successful, that it is easy to use. Because to answer your question directly, the hosts, either they are very tech savvy and they're going to play around with it, or have their own website even more professionally set up, or they're absolutely not tech savvy at all. So they need the simplicity to actually make that happen rather quickly. And a couple of things to mention what helped me from a product side for it, right? So I wasn't there at Smoobu when we built the last website builder. It was also built on a very old programming language that nobody could maintain, as mentioned before, yada, yada, yada. What helped us, or our product team actually, was that also obviously that wasn't the first time for the Duda team. So it was super nice to come in and say, hey, those are actually the requirements that we have for this website builder. It needs to be simple, performant, scalable. And the team could actually work with that, right? You didn't come up with, oh, we have all those fancy functions and we're going to do this and that is super cool and all the shiny tools in there. No, we stripped it down to the bare minimum, because the bare minimum is what actually creates the most value. Funnily enough, it's a bit counterintuitive, but in the end, if simplicity is what creates value, stripping everything down works quite perfectly. So that is a bit the part. Maybe coming up with Hans's questions. Emilia, 3 minutes and you have a website. Is it on your own domain or on host domain? You can choose both, actually. So we do offer the domains if you want to, but you can also connect it to your own domain if you already have some.
Yeah, I think a lot of what you're mentioning is also giving these hosts many different options, right? So one, simplicity looks different. So for example, that basic offering that you had into that premium offering that you've now turned into Duda, although you made it simple on purpose. And I think this is our guidance around a lot of the SaaS projects that we do, a lot of the SaaS companies that we work with. We always begin with the same conversation around, let's make it simple, premium, high performant, but let's set up custom templates, 1, 2, maybe 3, give people options. And then for those non-tech savvy individuals, it becomes very seamless. For the ones that are tech savvy, well, here's a whole bunch of tools that you do have at your disposal and that we will be offering you as a kind of like upgrade or premium offering. So I think this is like the importance here is the options that you were able to bring to market now.
Yeah, I think that sums it up pretty well. And this is also in generally as we're serving the long tail market, so the very, I want to say, simplistic basic users in the beginning, it's everything that we do in product is you start with a very simple offering and then you build from there. You said it very well, you give the users, the hosts for us, the option to take this and do that and expand a bit. But if you start out simply, the adoption is also much higher. We do see it with every feature that we launch, because we do have a lot of those add-on features as integrations in our marketplace with parties, and a couple of thousands of hosts are using those. But we do see if we launch something natively, the adoption rate is enormous because it's less friction. It's so much easier to have it within your own platform if you only have to click 2 things. And even if it's the simple solution, it doesn't have all the, how do you say, bells and whistles all over the place. It doesn't need to. That's the beauty of it.
Because
less friction, more adoption.
Exactly. And this lives within your portal. So this is the portal that your customers are logging into every day. It's not like they're going externally and using those tools. That's, I think, one of the beauties of white label is just being able to embed all of this into that one item. But yeah, we have another question as well from Robert. So what was the process to create the right support material to help with adoption? So I think this actually ties into Gabriella's question as well.
To be honest, that is a very good question. And I can tell you, we also had I want to call it, to positively phrase it, a learning process with this. Because even though everything I just mentioned about simplicity was clear from us in the beginning, we still completely underestimated the amount of help that hosts will still need. So we started out with offering or launching the new website builder for new hosts or new customers only in the beginning to test it out. So all the existing users still had access to their old website builder. They could still use it and so on. And all of the new ones could use the new website builder. So we also had the learning in, if you've never seen the old one, what are your processes? What are your questions around it? So in generally, we always work with guides and a couple of videos. Because we're a product-led company, right? We don't offer classic account management services. I think this is one thing that's very important to mention. So you don't get the one-on-one support. You can obviously call into customer support, but we can't help tens of thousands of users every day for that. But I think the learning that we had is we did not allocate enough time to iterate on those materials quick enough. So we got a lot of learnings. We got very quickly feedback. Hey, I mean, from all the questions you get towards that website builder, you can already see what are the general questions. Where do you need to help? Based on this, I would have liked to be much quicker in then adjusting your help center articles, adjusting small explanation videos. And the couple of things, we had very extensive stuff for it. We also had webinars for it. But I think what helps, if you can technically do it, also contextual in the product, have some smaller videos as pop-ups, as little link outs to say, hey, this is the one single step now as a 30-second video so people can rewatch it. So be very specific. Don't underestimate also the exact help that is needed. And what we did see is guides are nice, but if you can do smaller videos so people can also rewatch it and look at it and being walked through, and don't be afraid to be super specific, do it all over. Rather do more than less. And best case, obviously, you can help them personally with some sort of customer service. But other than that, I think the one learning is be very quick in iterations. So set aside time also to make those iterations happen on the material. That is the one mistake I'm annoyed with, that we didn't do well, that we didn't set enough time after the first creation of all the onboarding material for it to be even quicker and then iterate to make that happen.
I feel like this is one of the big points that a lot of SaaS leaders are worried about. Okay, we will kind of like offer more of a premium option and things like this, but how do you actually make sure that you don't turn into like a service type company? You're still product led SaaS, so you do not want support queries, you do not want agents handling these things. So I think that guide, that support portal that you've now built really kind of is an example of how you productize this and also create that sort of support material to help adoption. So we do have 16 minutes, and I'm loving all the questions, and I think I speak for both of us when I say that we would rather take these important questions, and obviously Yannick and I can then share a couple of more things on the slide and so on. But what was the hardest for them to learn? And I think this is more for the host, right? So
yeah,
what was hardest for them to learn?
Yeah, exactly. If it's not for the hosts, please chime in again, Gabriela. But I think the hardest part is even in the MVP, even in the stripped down version, as I mentioned it, the editor. So as you can see here, that is basically the launch product. Once you have it filled in, previously we had a little animation which it doesn't work in the sharing, so bear with me. This is basically the finished product with a website builder that you can get very easily if you have your own info already in Smoobu that you have. So, but as this is still a website builder for yourself, because we do want to offer the option for all of our hosts, I think still the very basic need, people felt overwhelmed with it. Because yes, you have a ready-to-go website, and for everyone who've used software before, it's very easy. You click in, you change the picture, and so on. But for people who are not used to it, there is a lot of things you can still do, even in the very simple version of the Duda website builder, of the editor, which is still too much for a lot of people. They don't need to change the font sizes. They don't need to change or put in different widgets and so on and so forth. But focusing them, I think that was the hardest part for us and for them also, because if they see the options, they think about, should I use this? Should I do this? You know, so you kind of, you also need to focus your host on telling them, don't worry, it's not important. Focus on the basic things, change the pictures, put in your text, done.
Yeah.
Leave it.
And I think this is where a lot of your product team really combined with our account management team sat down in a couple of sessions and really defined how the go-to-market was going to be. So like very basic, very simple, and yet there was still some adoption. And, you know, again, we won't be sharing numbers and so on, but your adoption was super positive. So these are good problems to have because of the adoption that you're bringing. But this is why it's so important to create the different packages and really kind of give your, again, it goes back to non-tech savvy or tech savvy. What type of host are you? Guiding them towards the right option for them is really kind of like key here, so that they don't end up thinking they can build the world and then end up breaking some of the stuff.
Yeah, and I think so. What is going to be super interesting, especially if we look at the way going forward, right? We touched a bit up on AI, and I've even yesterday at the Booking.com event that we mentioned. So if you keep your customer base in mind, is AI actually the right thing for them? Do they need all the bells and whistles? I think it depends on how you use it, because what, for example, we are going to do now is also develop that website builder 2.0, which on the one hand side we will monetize a bit more, but also give, for example, the option via the new Duda functions that you can also build your website using an LLM model or using AI, actually asking, make the website blue, make the website yellow, whatever. Funnily enough, that is already very tech heavy, very AI driven. But from a non-tech savvy host perspective, it's much easier to type in, make the website blue, than going in the editor, which I've never used before, choosing colors, choosing from a color palette, choosing the right parts of it to make it blue. So even though it's a much more technically advanced solution from a UX perspective, it's even simpler. So I think this is probably one of the features that I'm looking forward to the most in the next year, because that's actually quite exciting to have this option to give the host even more freedom with more simplicity. So in the end, that's basically again, simplicity can be more value in the end for hosts. I think that's also one of the main points I'm hopefully going to leave you with, if that's your target group. Value doesn't always mean it needs to be complex. Simplicity can be a virtue.
Yep. I think even the crowd is agreeing with you. Simplicity over options looks like the right concept. And I think that's actually a really good message to kind of like emphasize here. Options. I think the one item that I would would ask you based on what you just mentioned there. Performance is important. You already mentioned it. And I think that's where AI really starts to kind of shape things. Today, we are hearing a lot about AEO, AIO, how hosts are being found, discoverability. What are your hosts coming to Smobu and saying? Like, is this something that they are now expecting from you? Or what do you see as the future for hosts coming and saying, am I going to still be ranked on ChatGPT? Am I going to be found?
It is a very interesting conversation because, funnily enough, whereas you would think, if you think of our two ICPs again, the non-tech savvy and the tech savvy, that question is coming more from the non-tech savvy person. They're asking, hey, what's happening with AI search? Is an agent even going to book me anymore? And the funniest part about it, or not funny, but the interesting part is it's not yet relevant for them. So they don't even have SEO optimizations on their website. So it's for the ones that are not even SEO optimized right now, it doesn't matter if ChatGPT is going to find you or so. Let's put it like that. It doesn't matter if you're not going to be found on Google or if you're not going to be found on ChatGPT. That is the one thing. That's obviously the one thing that we don't want to push, in the sense that I would want to offer those opportunities for hosts, because that's in the end also a bit of the value proposition that we offer. So what I like about all of this and the general setup for this, and I think there may be also learnings from our side. If you deal with a customer base that is rather, I want to say, non-professional in terms of the education on the topic that they're doing with your product, for example, it very much helps and is very appreciated if you offer also the education around it. So not only offering the right product like a website builder, or even the option to optimize your website for AI optimization, for AI search, or for general SEO purposes, but also educating your hosts why they should do this, what the outcome might be. If I'm a very tiny host, I have one property, I don't necessarily need to do all that. It might help, and then I get a couple of more direct bookings, but I also do preach there is a reason why an Airbnb, a Booking.com, they are doing a fantastic job with marketing. They're spending tens of billions of dollars. Booking.com is literally the biggest spender on Google in terms of advertising spend. So they do the marketing for you. There is a reason. You can also take that, right? It's not bad to get bookings from those people. Mm-hmm. But obviously there is also a reason to go for AI search. But to come back a bit to your question, I think it's about education. I do think you need to look at your use case and also educate your users a bit. Is this really your most important topic right now? That you with 2 vacation rentals need to be optimized for AI search? I don't think so. Rather use dynamic pricing, rather optimize your own time, your revenue base, rather look at your prices again, generally your website setup or your listings on the different portals. If you've done all that, yes, maybe. But that shouldn't be top of mind for you as a host. And that's a very specific example, right? There might be use cases where it does make a lot more sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then, so obviously we're going to continue to discuss, and we can go over a little bit. Any last questions for Yannick? Start putting them in the chat now, because obviously as we go through the presentation, we might also have a couple of minutes. I encourage all of you, whether you're a product leader, whether you are an executive, we've got Yannick for the next 8 minutes to kind of again, uncover any curiosity that you might have. So feel free to drop some last questions in. But Yannick, back over to you, because I know that we've shifted a lot into this conversation, which was the aim of this, much more interactive than have us go through slides.
Yeah, I think happy to answer any questions, right?
Do you have any other? So one of the actual things that I had as kind of like one of the last points is again, many SaaS companies are starting to look beyond their core product and think about offering more complete digital ecosystems. What advice would you give to those thinking about expanding a simple feature set into multi-product offering? So what I mean by that is maybe you have 1, 2 core products. What advice would you give to product leaders that are looking to expand this beyond this, and not just websites, but just everything that you offer?
Yeah. I think the main message is, and what we also do see in our data, or generally in data of software as a service companies, right? So having more features, or let's put it different, the usage of your software defines retention. So if your software is used a lot, it will make your retention better. Obviously, if I'm a heavy user of any software, if it's not completely priced to the moon, I'm going to keep using it. So what you want to do is also keep your customers in that ecosystem and lock them in with integrations, with features that they use, with stuff that they use, and double down on this. But there is also obviously a certain time component to it. So if you have a core product set, keep building on that, make that bigger, and use the ability to fast track basically expanding that ecosystem in then tightening the grip on your customers basically with partners, because keep building on your core so you don't need extra resources to get those partners in, right? So that makes it much easier at the same time building a stronger core product and upping that usage of users. And in the end, when I talk about usage and locking them in, that always sounds a bit evil and whatever, but what you do is in the end, you create value for them, right? And the more value you can create, the easier it is to keep them in, to keep them happy, to charge them more. Not gonna lie, we're all, I don't know about any of the guests, but we're not running a non-profit organization. So value is what you can charge for and what users like to pay for. That's the beauty of it. It's not that they don't want to pay for it because it's the free world and they can do whatever you want. But if you do deliver that value, you can charge for this. So use the core, get those partners in to be quicker and actually expanding that value proposition. And the more value you propose, the more you can charge, which is nice because that's what pays the salaries in the end.
Has it become easier to partner with companies that obviously have, again, let's take the website example, obviously it has hundreds of developers and product people and so on. So it's obviously, this is our core product. We will continue. Has it become easier to partner with a Duda, or I know that you also have a different white label partner for some of your other solutions that you mentioned. Has it become easier, or is it still a long evaluation process that you still need to kind of like get your product team to do?
No, it becomes a lot easier. So from the first process we did to, we're also looking at different solutions for the beginning of next year again, white labels. It becomes much clearer on how the process is supposed to happen, what's supposed to be in the discovery, should or should you not actually look at different vendors, what's the scope you actually need. So I would say it's a very steep learning curve as well. So you don't need to do 12 different white label integrations to actually get that done, but it's rather straightforward and it gets easier and quicker. And you also, through those processes, you also do have all the learnings of what it is that you need to look up or look for upfront versus stuff that you can also check a bit later in the process. So it's quite nice that you do get quite a bit quicker with it, yes.
Okay, good. I think I've seen that as well across other industries. How hosts find you? So PPC, SEO, referral, affiliate. How are hosts finding Smobu?
That is a very good question. So it is all inbound. Funnily enough, we've just ran the first proof of concept with actual outbound sales. We had the first outbound sale ever in our 11-year company history last week. Wow. So it is, you could say 100, it's 99.99999% inbound still. we have a mix, exactly as you put it. We have a mix of paid ads. We have a very strong content team. So we've been creating content in 6 different languages for the past couple of years to actually be relevant in all the markets that we serve. Affiliate, we're building out in terms of ambassador programs. So we do also specifically work with people in the industry or adjacent industries that can refer us customers. For example, coaches that teach you how to build your side hustle with Airbnb that usually refer then Smobu as a software. Cleaning companies that clean vacation rental, those kind of things. So that is a stream. And then peer-to-peer referrals, customer referrals, big chunk for us. You can also later, if you want to, I mean, shameless self-advertisement, check out my LinkedIn profile later. I had actually a post referring to our referral partner where we do it with. So it is a double-digit part of our user acquisition every month that our users refer other users. So it is super relevant, and I can very much adhere to each and every one of you. Use that. It's the cheapest channel you're ever going to get, and it has the best retention rates you can get. Not only for the ones who get referred, but especially to the ones who refer. Funnily enough.
I feel like that if a referral program is strong, it highlights good quality product.
Yeah.
That's what I always feel. Because even like when I speak about things that I use and I speak to my colleague and I say, hey, have you seen this app or this thing? Like that's when I will receive that kind of like, okay, yeah, I will download that. And if it's really exciting for him, it should be exciting for me. Okay. And general
quick follow-up from Hans. Yeah, exactly. What content do we produce? It varies. So on the one hand side, we have one part of the content team that's very focused on driving SEO specific content. So we look at the different keywords that are relevant for us and produce the content for this. But we also try to do now an additional part of relevant content for hosts, meaning stuff around regulation, industry trends, and also general education on how to help them not only be better hosts, but also run a business. So you, on the one hand, do produce, and I would start with actually the SEO content, which is very unspectacular, very technical. So you do create content for the purpose of being ranked high on the relevant keywords. And then you expand basically on the, I want to say the fun part of the content, which is education, helping your hosts and actually staying relevant and just top of mind. So it's more of a brand content, education content than the classic SEO content.
Yeah, your marketing team are going to be very happy about the shout out in the inbound side, and we will send a snippet. Kudos to Smobu's marketing team and content team, because it sounds like you guys are doing really good. I've never actually heard that. I didn't even know that. That is very surprising, because I mean, what's the potential for Smobu if you start doing outbound? That's the real question. If you have this strong inbound from PPCs and referrals, and that's a huge channel. I'm sure that this is what your 2026 planning is currently. How that how can you supercharge this with outbound as well?
Yeah, if any one of you has a vacation rental, you're soon going to get a call.
There we go. So honestly, like this has flown by the way. We're over time. So, Yannick, I think, on behalf of me and on behalf of everyone at Duda, and you've met a lot of the team here. We, over the last year, we've built something quite exciting together. And I think this is why we wanted to set this up, to give anyone in the audience who's perhaps in a similar situation that Yannick was in a year and a half ago, just to have a little bit more knowledge around what the process might look like. Connect with Yannick directly, because I think he enjoys a lot of this kind of like discussions and conversations, and he's very open to it. Feel free to connect with me, and we can expand on some of these topics. I do want to thank everyone before we go to Yannick. I do want to thank everyone in the chat who has interacted today and had lots of questions. I think we probably should have done longer, now that I'm thinking about it. But so Yannick, Thanks a lot. Do you have a closing statement? I know that we've had a couple of points today that we want to leave people with: simplicity, options. But what's your last closing statement?
I think, to be fair, I think Hans put it very well. Simplicity over options it's a very good point. So deliver that value, and simplicity can be a big value creator.
So someone is Anton, you're very quick on the graphics. I want to thank Anton as well, who's always behind the scenes here at Duda in terms of the webinar master, getting everything organized. And but Yannick, thank you very much. What is your next race that you are running?
I am. It's a very good question. I'm going to Portugal in 2026.
Amazing. Full marathon or half?
It's an ultra.
Oh wow! Okay, nice. I love it. Well, maybe some of you can go and I know a lot of you are going to be listening to the recording of this. So maybe if there are runners out there, if you have a 1 hour and 4 minute run at some point in the next couple of weeks, just stick this webinar on, and hopefully you'll be very entertained. Cool. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye for now.
Duda puts your brand front and center. With Duda's extensive white label capabilities, you can